is 6 o'clock. Time to start. Welcome. I believe this meeting is being recorded. Yes. I haven't heard of any public comments. Are there, did you guys receive any?
We did not receive any public comments.
Okay. In that case, just running through the agenda, we're going to switch the next two in order. So the equity contracting goals will be next, followed by the deferred maintenance plan, and then we'll review the performance report. Just a reminder, this is the last meeting of this calendar year. We've got the holiday, and then January 24th will be our next meeting. And I'd like to, particularly for the BAC members, if you've got ideas for topics, let's try to get them to staff as early as we can so that they've got time to prepare for that. So, Aaron?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. A couple items on the agenda for tonight. We have the deferred maintenance plan and also just a quick presentation on our equity contracting goals and practices. So we're going to skip to that one here real quick, which is right here. So up on the screen for you, I've displayed the three elements of the equity contracting goals. These are goals that the school board has put together. It's goals for the bond program as a whole. I'll kind of describe each of these three things and how we approach it. And then I'm going to turn it over to our guest tonight, Trevor Wyckoff. He is the project executive for the Beaverton High School rebuild with Skanska. So he's going to talk specifically how these goals and practices look when implemented on the Beaverton High School project. So the first goal here is business equity. This deals with certified firms. So this is prime and subcontractor, architects and consultants, as well as contractors. So we have a goal of 15% of contract awards going to firms with some type of certification. And this, when we're hiring contractors, we include this as a goal in our project solicitation criteria. On hard bids, you don't really have much of a say in, who the low bidder is, but a lot of times we do qualifications-based selections on projects, and then we can include this as one of the selection criteria when awarding points to different contractors. The second component here is similar, but there's a major distinction, and this is the diverse workforce. This has to do with actual hours worked on the project and specifically around apprenticeships. And so this is talking about number of hours performed in apprenticeships on projects. Our goal is 10% of those hours, apprenticeship hours, be performed by minorities or by women. So this is done through collaboration with the trade unions on projects and subcontractors in who they're selecting to perform these apprenticeships. And then the last one is career learning, which Trevor will talk quite a bit about this, but this is really how are we leveraging our resources, how are we interacting with the students and the schools to expose them to careers in architecture and construction, internships, job shadows. We had 3 interns that worked for us this last summer, and this is directly as a result of this goal here. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Trevor, and he's going to talk about the Beaverton High School project.
Alrighty, thank you. So good evening. Trevor Wyckoff with Skanska, as they mentioned, and also a Beaverton High School graduate. So really excited about this project specifically because of what it means for me personally and Beaverton High School. So wanted to go through kind of the same thing, but our approach to how we're going to meet all those goals. If you want to go to the agenda. So, like Aaron mentioned, we've got the subcontractor and supplier diversity, which for us, that's any subcontractor, any supplier that provides any materials or equipment for the project that we track, and we have a plan for that, and I'll get into that. Workforce diversity is specific to the craft on the site, so how we are approaching the goal of the apprenticeship, which is 10% on the project. And then one that I'm going to talk probably most about is the engagement for students and staff and the community. And we saw when we proposed on this project, we knew this was these are all important goals for the district, and so we've been putting effort into the plan to achieve these goals on the project. Do you want to go to the next, or do you want me to? Oh, good. I get the controls. Okay, so first off is subcontractor and supplier diversity. So there's, you guys can't see this, can you? That's great. So the purpose of the plan really is about outreach and providing opportunity to qualified, certified, diverse subcontractors, suppliers, and providers for the Beaverton High School project. And so we do this in a variety of methods to encourage participation on the project. Also, I think it's important to note that we also want to make sure that we have a competitive process, because we have to also, we have a fiduciary responsibility for the project towards the budget on the project. And so we do have a plan for that as well. We do have that same 15% goal of our contract value for subcontractors and suppliers, and we also have a plan for outreach to encourage the participation from these subcontractors and suppliers. So I'm going to open up the detailed plan that we have. Oh, that's really small. That we have put together for this project specifically. And I don't think I'm going to read through all this because it's a lot of information, but there's really a few steps to what our subcontractor and supplier diversity plan is. And it involves basically a outreach program to the subcontractor community, letting them know about the program, the project, what opportunities are available on the project for those subcontractors and suppliers. And we do that through direct phone call. Also, we have connections and in the industry groups that are minority and diverse industry groups throughout the Portland metropolitan region, which we would present on this project specifically, and the different bidding opportunities for the project. We also create a bid scopes that can be attractive to some of the diverse subcontractors on the project, because not always do they have the capabilities of proposing on a really large package with a whole bunch of scope. So we provide packages that are smaller and can be tailored to increase the participation for these diverse subcontractor group. And then we market the project through advertising and direct phone calls, and then also through these industry partners, so that these diverse subcontractors are aware of the project, and they know when the project's bidding and when they can actually approach the proposal process. We also, so we have efforts to outreach, and also we track all of our communication with the diverse subcontractors, just as a means of tracking, and so that people can check to make sure that we've actually done the outreach that we said we're going to do. Then we basically we award work, and then we monitor the progress and against the goal as far as how well we're performing from a percentage of total contract on the project. I'm going to just flip out of this thing actually and go back to the presentation. So we also have, so there are different certifications that we are, that are also a part of the board goals and the bond promise. So it's the Oregon certification, COBID, also federally certified subcontractors and suppliers, nationally certified, and also the WBE certification. So all these subcontractors would count towards that goal, that 50% goal. We have, right now, we have, just wanted to point out, we have 3 trade partners on the project. We've got electrical, who is Prairie Electric. We've got mechanical and plumbing, Apollo, and then also Anning Johnson, the framing subcontractor. And those were, we selected those through a qualified competitive process. Apollo is a nationally certified contractor, so that's a really good thing. And they actually would represent already about 10% of the project value in certification, certified diverse subcontractors. So our work is to get the 5% more and then some and try to exceed that. So we have, I talked about how we basically approach this project specifically, but also we're involved in the diverse organizations in Portland in different trade shows and in just essentially trying to partner with these subcontractors to provide opportunities with all of our projects, but when they come up for, Beaverton High School specifically, and really coach and mentor them so that they're successful. We have a program, it's called Construction Management Building Blocks, and that is specifically run out of our office in Portland, and we teach and mentor the diverse and smaller and disadvantaged subcontractors and suppliers on how to bid projects, how to manage construction projects, and how to be successful on projects for Skanska, but also just industry-wide for different organizations and different construction projects. I have information that I'll share later about how we track and will report in the data on the subcontractor and supplier participation. But workforce diversity is another element to our engagement plan for Beaverton High School. And we have a 10% goal of apprentice on the project, which is a very achievable goal. We feel confident that we're going to achieve that and exceed it. We had a similar project over in Vancouver for the Evergreen School District as Mountain View High School, and we were 21% apprentice on that project, so very high percentage. And again, we encourage the apprenticeship utilization through our bidding process, through our outreach to the local unions, to ensure that we have the subcontractors that are bidding the project that will have the apprentice resources available to dedicate to this project. We also have, I forgot to mention on the subcontractor and supplier diversity piece, one of the things that we're doing on the project is a part of the bid process is that we will set up the bid form to have information regarding what certification the subcontractor may have or may not have, if they're certified, and if they're not, we'll encourage them to provide. They have sub-tier subcontractors and suppliers that may be diverse, and so as a part of the bid process, we're going to ask them for what percentage of their total contract that would be going towards these diverse subcontractors, and all of that counts towards the overall goal of the 15% for supplier and subcontractor participation. We have so part of our, I guess it's really a part of our whole engagement and our culture on our projects for a diverse workforce. is that we want the environment to be some place that they're comfortable working, that everybody on the job site is comfortable working on, and that they feel like they're a valuable contributing member of the project. We have a anti-harassment program that we have it's Skanska wide, but it's going to be utilized on this project. And we have a training for our leaders. It's a know the line training that we really communicate the importance of respectful workplace for everybody on site. And it just goes to ensure that it's a good environment for everybody to work at. This is it's the diversity dashboard, and this is where we're at as of today, which the percentages are low, but the scope so far on Beaverton High School has been very limited to essentially portable, the portable setup. But this is something that will be accessible and available at any time, and it provides the total contract amount, the values that we have been contracting to the certified suppliers and subcontractors, and so you can track and see how we're doing compared to the project goal. You can see we're contracted at 7.2%, but like I said, that's just we're just starting. We really haven't even launched into the main construction. And then the same thing with the apprentice goal of 10%. So we will gather that information from our subcontractors on the craft makeup on a monthly basis, and we'll have that input into our database where we'll be able to report out anytime really as far as how we're doing with respect to that goal. And then the piece that is probably, well, it's exciting, and that is how we engage with the students and the staff and the community. And so I'm going to talk about a few different engagement methods that we do and that we would provide on this project specifically. So summer internships. So this is something that has been very successful for us, that we provide an internship for a high school student. And it can be, we've done in the past where it's been, a summer intern and then a different intern the next year. And we usually do it in conjunction with the high school so that they're a part of the interview process and the selection of, who might be the best for this internship, where they're going to learn some of the basics of construction, like a project engineer might on our project. The nice thing about this is that it really creates a connection. That student usually turns into a really good advocate for the project and what's going on, and they share with their friends and their teachers. So I think it's one of the best things that we can do with the engagement piece. We've had also success with this being a year-round thing. So not just summers, but we've had where a student might be able to work. It's really flexible. It's whatever they need, or whatever might work. A few hours a week to come in and do some tasks for us to stay connected to the project and help us with any part of our business really. Yeah.
Are these students college or high school or both?
So we will probably have college interns, but that's not what I'm talking about specifically here. So this would be high school interns. That would be probably Beaverton High School student. We've done it before where it's district wide. So in this case, maybe it's somebody from Sunset, but I mean, it has been more successful when it is actually a student from the high school where we're doing the work. It just creates it's just a better atmosphere. They're able to communicate more with like I said, their peers and teachers about the project. So this would be a high school student. And they're paid. It's a paid internship, so I think it's a win-win for everybody. Classroom presentations, we are extremely excited about doing these. Usually our trade partners or subcontractors are also equally excited about it. We have a real interest in getting more people into the construction field, whether that's on, the management side or on the craft side. But this is something that we really work hard to do on when, especially when we're building a new high school, to coordinate with the staff there to engage with the students and share with them all the opportunities that are available in construction. I grew up, my dad was an architect. I didn't really understand what construction management was, honestly. So it's good to be able to give them that information so that they know what potential opportunities there are out there. And we love doing it. We do that with, really, there's CTE classes, there's, general construction classes, other classes. And we can do this either in the high school, in the classroom, or the classroom can come to us. Project tours are also can be really exciting, and we want to take every opportunity to take student groups out there. Fairly limited number. We don't want to bring the whole student body out there, but a limited number of students at a time to come and take them on tours so that they can learn about the project, learn about construction. We want to spend that time with people. To give them that experience, also with staff. We're gonna share this project and tour staff on the project multiple times. Other events that we like to do is, so we do have milestones in the construction project in the process that we like to celebrate, and we like to engage the school community as much as possible. One of the more popular ones is beam signing. So this is something that we have done on last several school projects where we have a beam that is going to be a part of the project, and we'll set it up there out on the site for people to come sign, and then it'll be erected into the building, and we'll sit there forever. So that's something that we would love to do. Topping out ceremony, so that's similar. That's when we basically the final piece of steel erection goes in place. That's a good celebration time, and something that we would also potentially want to celebrate with the students and staff. And then this project is also going to have a lot of unique aspects, like the concrete tilt panels, which are going to be going up. It's going to be just a pretty big event, and so any type of opportunity like this, we're going to be looking forward to engage the students and staff. This is another element that we've been successful at, and that's so our hard hats, we have an orientation program for all of the craft workers that come on site. When they come on site, they go through an orientation and a training of how they're going to work on our project specifically. And a lot of that is that respectful workplace and some other elements that we go through with the craft. And then to identify that they've gone through the orientation and that they are, truly supposed to be on our project site, we give them a project sticker. So we developed this idea that we would have a student competition for creating that sticker, and that's actually been really cool. And so we're going to do that on this project where students will do some type of a design, and we'll evaluate it, and that winning design will become the hard hat sticker for all the craft on the project. We also have we're going to have a project specific website. So this is from Mountain View, and we had a QR code out on the fence, and we can put just about any type of information into this. Can I click on the link? Hopefully that's okay. So what we like to do is share updates on the project in this website. So if a student or somebody wants to see what's going on, they can scan the QR code and it'll take them to this website that's coming up. It will not be Mountain View High School, but we're not done with the Beaverton High School one. So it provides updates on a monthly basis and then information. This one, so we have information about the specifics about the project. And really, this is a tool that students, staff, and also the community can see, and they can, see updates on what is going on the project. We've also used this when we want to communicate on some projects. We've used this as a tool if we need to communicate, if there's information about, traffic changes or, that type of thing, we can use this to communicate that. I don't know that we would do that here, but it is an opportunity for that. Yeah. So anyways, this is another element that we're going to be doing. How do I get out of here now? And I think that's it. Like I said, we know that, all three of these pieces of the engagement for this project are important, and it's a focal point of what we're doing moving forward.
Hey, Trevor, back on where you were going through the subcontracts that
Yeah.
you would get on that, do you, to try to get to these goals, do you have set-asides where only minority contractors can bid on, or do you give a preference to them over other contractors?
So let me say it this way. The project can make a decision about that however they want to do it. But my approach would be that we're going to, we also want to make sure that it is a competitive process because we have a budget that we have to hit. And so having the information, like I mentioned, so that the bidders provide if they're diverse and what, and then if they have a sub-tier, the percentage of diverse subcontractor that they're going to bring to the project, it provides a mechanism to potentially evaluate that. But I also feel like we should be able to achieve the 15% without a specific set aside. So I think when you're saying a specific set aside, like let's say it's toilet accessories, that would be just for diverse subcontractors to bid on. So that some projects do that. We are not planning on doing that specifically. We have a plan that has opportunities for anybody to bid the project that's qualified to bid the project. But we've also set up some of the scopes, like let's say toilet accessories, so that it's a better opportunity for those diverse subcontractors. We have the opportunity, though, also, if we want, to make a decision as a team about, whether the diverse piece weighs into the selection. We don't have to do that, though. Does that answer your question?
Yeah,
I
think so.
We,
I guess a follow-on question on that. Do you find, based on your experience, that when you select a contractor that meets the diversity goals, is the project at higher risk for delivery and performance? Or have you found that the minority contractors are on par with anybody else you'd get?
well, so I guess the way I'd answer that is the smaller, underutilized, diverse subcontractors that, it's not just minority, it's small business, it's women-owned, it's several things. They are certified in that from the state of Oregon certification because they don't have necessarily the same resources or the size that a larger, more, a larger contractor would have. So we're not at more risk, but we do want to make good selections about, we have a pre-qualification process for every subcontractor that's going to bid on this project. And so there are certain things that we expect from, any subcontractor that's going to bid on the project. We also have I mentioned the coaching piece. So there is a coaching part of this that we do with the subcontractors to make sure that they're successful. And so I guess what I'd say is we're smart about our selections, but also we understand that there is going to be potentially some more effort that's going to be put into making sure that the subcontractors are successful on the project.
I'd like to emphasize that the coaching piece is really, really crucial in many cases. One of the biggest things I've seen over the years that when you run into a challenge that has a lot to do with cash flow, learning how to submit a proper pay application and getting paid on time, paying your vendors on time and so forth. And that's what Skanska, does. And that's what they can help the subcontractors with.
The cash flow thing, not to get into too many weeds, but the cash flow thing can be really big for some of these subcontractors. And so sometimes, through a conversation, we may need to do something a little different with billings, like by 2 times a month billing or something, to make sure that, they're not overextended. And that's just one of those things that makes, we work together to make sure that they're successful on the project.
Yeah, same with, joint checking suppliers and that sort of thing. Very common, and it's something that they can really do to help all subcontractors, but particularly the smaller ones with, without the resources and credit and everything.
I asked the question, I've had experience where as a program manager, project manager overall, that we really stepped in and helped some of the minority contractors get through, and they learned from that, and the project benefited. So I'm happy to hear you're committed to that as well.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Hi. Usually it will be Sunita that will be here today, but she had something that she had. Sunita would be the person that is representing the board, but today I just came to listen into the first part, and I have to go because one of my kids has a play in a few minutes. So, but I just wanted to welcome everybody and to say thank you for being here. And Sunita is actually watching online, but just can't connect until she'll be back next time. But thank you.
I think the goals are terrific, and I believe we blew through them on the last bond and met those goals as well.
I had a few things. I know it got announced here recently that Intel was going to gear up again out in Hillsboro.
Yeah.
And I know you folks have worked out there too and are out at the airport with Hoffman.
Mm-hmm.
So have you heard anything about the start time on Intel Hillsboro, whether that might impact your labor force here at Beaverton? And by the way, I'm a Beaverton High School graduate too.
Nice. I have heard that it could be as early as next spring, summer.
Which is when you're going to start.
Yes, it is. The nice thing is, Intel is going to draw a lot of resources. I don't know all the specifics about the projects. They're going to draw a lot of resources, though, depending on the size of those. They always do. And we have, the school construction community is, there's different craft between, for the most part, the ones that build schools and the ones that build the big fabs and other work out at Intel. So I think it's a concern overall, but from my perspective, I actually feel like this project is, from a bidding standpoint, is in a pretty good spot because of where the market is. We're just going to have to see how it goes with other projects. The other thing is there's other projects outside of Intel that, the market is slowing. So, yeah, they're going to absorb a lot of resources out there, but we're going to be in good shape.
Okay. When I was in construction here in the Portland area, and I think it was on Skanska projects, everybody, especially on school sites, everybody has to turn in the fact that they went through a criminal background check. Is that still the case?
Yes.
And so all the subcontractors know what is allowed and what is not allowed on the job site? Or do you just say, just give us a background check and you determine whether or not that person can go on site? Because at the time that I dealt with Skanska, they said, give me all your information. I said, I can't do that. You tell me what I can or cannot have on your job site, and I'll let you know, and they wouldn't go for it, so.
So we have an SOP that drives the requirements on the criminal background checks that we give to Skanska, and they have that. They provide us a list showing all the people who have passed our specific list of criteria. It's all stuff that we do for our own employees in the district. You know, sex offender, drug offenses.
So,
that sort of
so
thing.
all the subs that bid know they're gonna go through a background check, and they know what the criteria is for a person to be able to work on Beaverton High School.
Yes, it is listed and it is specific as far as all the different.
Okay.
There's a lot of numbers and letters to them, but it's all clear. There's an organization that does that background check. We get the information about who, if there's people that didn't pass. We don't get the details though. So, yeah.
So it's evolved then? Okay. And then the last thing is, it's gonna be a while before you get into construction, but what do you plan on probably in the fall or winter for site security when plumbing and copper and perforables could walk off? What's the job site security at night and weekends?
So we have not worked through the details of what that security is going to be on the site. I can tell you that on past projects similar to this, we've done a combination of, everybody's got to lock up all their stuff, first of all, but we've done a combination of cameras, security cameras, and then at times on some projects, we've done security patrols. But that's something that we'll continue to work through with the team here as how we're going to address security on the project specifically for theft and that.
Is that part of the bid package?
We don't, it'll be a part of the GMP when we put that together. It's not a specific bid yet, because we haven't determined exactly how we're going to address that. We'll have a budget set aside for security on the site and work through that.
Something to add to that as well, there'll be a live streaming camera with the project, so if we see anything on there, we'll have access to that footage as well.
So a more general question kind of along those lines. I was going to ask you what the top 3 items on your risk register were, but then thinking about that it's 8 months away, it's kind of a silly question. So perhaps a request that after you've signed a contract and the GMP is established, et cetera, maybe come back and talk about what, before construction starts, where you can still do something about it. And talk about what you see as the biggest challenges and what you're trying to proactively do to address them so you can really hit the ground running in July of next year.
Yeah, no problem.
Hi, Trevor.
Hi.
What's the number one risk item now, though, for real? Let's just do it. I mean, they're there, right? Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
I would agree, yeah.
Students and staff safe
Oh,
while
wait,
they're on
yeah.
site.
Okay,
That's the primary focus for us, right? And
Yeah.
I know that's a high priority for them as well. And so we've been working pretty diligently on putting the logistics plan together, talking with all of our partners on how we're gonna have students access and egress the building. Right? We've met with fire marshal. We've already purchased, trailers,
Connexes.
right?
They're
Those
connexes.
containers that we're gonna utilize, so that's been a big focus of ours. This is what with us as well. So.
Yes, I was going to say that is the number one
Makes sense.
risk item, I guess. And yeah, we have been working really hard. Those Connex tunnels are basically an egress path to get students in and out of the building safely. We're going to be building that building right next to the existing. This is a lot of the same team as we had at Mountain View High School, and that was nearly, the building was, single story for the most part, but it's essentially the same. I think the closest point was 15 feet from the existing high school to where we were building. But just the logistics around that, keeping the school active and, minimizing any impact on the whole site while building it, that's the number one item.
One other question, as far as job site material deliveries, are you going to do just in time as much as possible, or is it going to be a lay down yard for steel? And
We are going to do just in time as much as humanly possible, and it's going to have to be that way because there's no space. We are taking, every square foot of that site for parking, student staff parking, construction of the new high school, and then just, the athletics. So there's no space for us other than a very small courtyard in the new building for laying anything down. So. Unless we find somewhere that we can put stuff. No. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we're gonna excuse Trevor so he can
Thanks.
go home. Okay, with that, we have a quick presentation here on the deferred maintenance plan. So in 2019, we hired McKinstry to do a facilities condition assessment. What that involved was going around to every one of our buildings, 60 different sites, and assessing those facilities. They look at every square inch of the buildings. They are compiling a list of assets we have in the buildings. So these assets are really anything that goes in the building. Think of like an HVAC unit, and like a rooftop unit would be one asset. A roof of a building would be one asset. A roof could be multiple assets if there are different types of roofing materials on one building, or if there are different sections of the building that had been roofed at different times. You could have a roof that has, or a school that has 6 different roofing assets, different roofs constructed at different times. You have carpet, you have, electrical panels, a track, all that stuff makes up the facilities condition assessment. They're looking at these assets, they're assessing the condition. They're looking at estimated remaining life of each of these assets and what is a probable replacement cost when that asset is at the end of its life. So I have here, if I can click on it, this is an executive summary of assessment for Beaverton High School. So this is kind of hard to display. So this is just this is a summary sheet. So this is not the list of the assets. The list of assets lives in a database. But you can see here some of the systems that they're looking at in the building, the replacement costs, the condition scores of those assets, and the estimated remaining life of those systems. All this rolls up into a database to give each school and each system a specific score, showing or giving us a sense of its relative overall condition. No, honestly, I can't. I'm not quite sure. So this is Beaverton High School. You can see Beaverton High School has 508 assets listed in the assessment. You can see for the, it's showing us here that we should be, we have a lot of assets that should be replaced immediately. This represents $31 million worth of things that are already at or past the end of their life. And obviously, we're replacing Beaverton High School, so this all went into that calculus of that decision. And there's just some pictures and general overall comments of different systems in the school. You can see Beaverton High School still running on pneumatic controls, old water heater, worn out track. Again, just an example of a summary sheet, and we have these for every single school. And each of them comes with a full long list of deficiencies as well. So this, what it gives us is a kind of an overall score for all schools and systems to help us track our progress year to year. We use this average condition score. You can see here each of the systems listed on the left side. This is across the average for each of these systems across the entire district. So you can see when we first conducted the assessment, we had an average condition score of a little over 3. And in the last couple of years, we've slowly started to reduce that score, which you want it to be going down. You want it to be a 1. So that's good news that it's been going down. This is really just a result of the deferred maintenance that we've been doing over the last couple of years. We've been doing a significant amount. And right now, you know, that's thanks in large part to the current bond that we have going on. We have $120 million in the deferred maintenance bucket, about $20 million per year in the current bond that we're spending on deferred maintenance. And that's really helping us drive that number to the good. In the absence of that deferred maintenance funding, we would be going the other direction.
They were setting a condition. That's gotta be pretty subjective.
Yeah.
Did they have a criteria that they used?
They do, and in one way that they do it to keep it consistent is they use the same person that's doing all of the assessments. So they have these really detailed checklists that they use in doing the assessments and assigning those scores. And they have very skilled and experienced people who are performing those assessments.
And the same thing relative to the life of that piece of equipment. Was there a criteria that they used? I mean, how do you predict that?
They use the manufacturer recommendations on those. So what they're doing is they're going and looking on the equipment, and they'll say a rooftop unit. They're going and looking at the equipment tag. They're seeing what year it was installed. They're pulling the serial number, and based on what year it was installed, they can see that this type of unit, the size of unit, has a 15, 20-year recommended life. And that's really what's driving the expected life.
So you said the numbers are going down on that chart, which is good. Is there a goal to get it to a certain number, or just that it continues to go down?
It's one of those things where it's always going to be a moving target, right? As costs go up, as things age and just get older, it's going to be going up. So we're constantly fighting against it to get it down. I think we've kind of found that doing around 20 million a year in deferred maintenance costs is really our capacity right now. And it's getting the number in the right direction. So we do not actually have a specific goal, but getting it as low as we can really is the goal.
I know it's not an exact science, so I get it. I'm just curious.
So as far as how we came up with 120 million, that was based on this facilities condition assessment. I'm going to try to demo for you guys how this tool works, so please bear with me. It's a little hard for me to see these screens. So they put together the database here, and they put it into they provide us this visualization tool. So this They originally, we had a different program that we used called Tableau, and it was a desktop application that you could use to do the visualization. They switched to this Reveal program, and I'm a little bit less experienced with this program, so this is why I'm asking you to bear with me here. But in this lives all of the information from the facilities condition assessment. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. Nope, I don't know how to do that. So here at the top, you can see $803 million. This is the current deferred maintenance backlog that we have based on their assessment.
And that's all conditions of anything.
Yes, correct. Now, what we, that's obviously too much for us to include in a bond. It's too much work for us to execute. We need to go in and filter this down based on certain criteria here, and I'll walk us through it. So the first thing we needed to look at was, we know that we are going to be replacing 3 schools in this bond already. We're going to replace Beaverton High School, we're going to replace Raleigh Hills, and we are going to replace the Allen Street Transportation Building. So I'm going to take all of those out of the list. It's going to filter them out. It's not going to show any of the assets at those schools. And it's going to start bringing that number down. So you can see that lopped off, $80 million off of the list. The next thing that I'm going to do here is this asset database includes seismic deficiencies. And for the purposes of our deferred maintenance budget, we're just going to not talk about seismic because we have a separate seismic budget. And that number is a massive number. So I'm going to uncheck the seismic number and filter that out of the list here. So that gives us about $500 million worth of deficiencies. Over here on the left, part of the evaluation criteria and some of the fields that go into the database we're looking at is overall asset condition and classroom impact. So you can, what we want to do is we want to consider really only items that are in bad condition right now. Something that's in good condition, we're not going to worry about. So I can change this slider here and pick things that are in poor condition. And that starts to bring the number down even further. And then we also have one for classroom impact. So this is, students, this is classrooms. This will filter out anything that doesn't impact classrooms. So like support facilities, for instance. So we can do the same thing. This next one is energy use impact. So we're gonna filter for projects that have a large impact for energy efficiency. That's something that's one of our bond goals, and we're not gonna look at anything unless it's gonna save us money on energy. Oops. So there we go. You can see by doing that, it brings us down to what we have included in the bond, 120 million. And that is really how we came up with the list, almost exactly. Let's see, I'm gonna go back. Oh, yeah, go for it.
Outside of the bond in your normal operating budget, what do you have to address deferred maintenance in?
I defer to Casey. Or Carl.
Yeah, that's okay. Believe it or not, there's only approximately a $800,000 budget available for any kind of repairs district-wide out of the general fund.
So go ahead, Randy.
So, is it thousands and thousands of things that add up to that, or is there like a 80-20 rule here where 80% of the money is in 20% of the items?
That is a great question, and off the top of my head here, and not being able to see this, I can't tell you the answer,
So-
but it's a lot of items.
So the reason I'm wondering is, so you, in.
1,059 is what it says there.
Yeah, so it's quite a few items, but I bet some of them are bigger than the others, right?
Yep, more than likely.
The reason I'm asking is, you also have this, you're gonna talk about it, but this facilities group that then looks and updates things every 6 months or something like that.
Yep.
What I'm wondering is there something we can look at list-wise that sort of tells us what the big things in this number are? So when they look again 6 months from now, to see if any of those fell off the list or changed or anything, just in a big picture way. We don't want to manage 1,100 items. But if there's big stuff that you're expecting to do and somehow it changed, that seems to me we might, as an accountability committee, be interested in knowing why things like that are happening.
Sure, you
And
know.
you may not have the perfect answer for that tonight, but maybe it's something we can talk about.
It's a fair question, and what I would suggest is that the best way to track that is going to be on our bond financial report. This is where we have listed the things that we have actually committed to. So anything on the financial report under the deferred maintenance section, that comes from this. And it's a combination of items that we have listed, like in our, when we went out for the bond, you know, when we were campaigning for the bond, on each of the schools' website, it lists the projects that we're gonna be doing at each of those schools. Like at Sunset High School, we're gonna do an HVAC project. That's listed on here because it's listed on the bond website for Sunset. Also on here are projects that we've come up with that we know, that we see as a priority. Something has failed or is about to fail, and so we've stuck it on here. Even though it wasn't necessarily in here or it wasn't on the website, we know that it needs to be done. Using this, we can drill down into any of these assets. We can click on stuff. We can, like I said, I'm having a hard time seeing this, but we can look at each of these assets and it gives us all of the information through this tool here. I'll give you a practical example of how we use this. We're doing a seismic project at Mountain View Middle School next summer. I can use this tool to go in, I can filter for the items in Mountain View Middle School, like electrical systems that are going to be impacted as a result of the seismic project. I can go pull out a list from that database of what those specific assets are. I can hand them to we did this, hand it to the project team doing the seismic project and say, hey, while you're in there doing the Mountain View Middle School seismic upgrade, fix all this stuff at the same time. Because I can see that it's going to, if it hasn't failed yet, it's about to fail, and let's take care of it while we're in there. So it's a really powerful tool.
So if there's not much of an annual operating budget for deferred maintenance, is there anything for seismic annually, or the upgrades only being out of the bond?
That's all bond money. Yep.
If that's such a significant cost driver and it's a safety issue, why wouldn't we prioritize all of the available bond money that we could for seismic updates first?
So, great question, and I don't think it's all of one and none of the other, right? We do it all at the same time, so we're trying to do as much as we can. We're doing the seismic upgrades, and we're trying to do the energy projects. We're doing replacing the lighting at the same time. We're replacing the HVAC and electrical. It's kind of all trying to capture it as much as you can at one time.
When this bond is done, when the projects for this bond will be completed, will there be other significant seismic upgrades that are still being built?
I would say that is a whole nother presentation that I'd be happy to give sometime if you guys are interested. I could talk forever about that. But yeah, in this bond, we addressed the highest need seismic. You get me going here, but we did a whole seismic assessment of all schools. We picked all the worst rated schools, and we're doing those in this bond for the most part. Like Beaverton High School and Raleigh Hills were the two worst rated schools seismically. Replacing them takes it off that deficiencies list. We're doing upgrades at all the middle schools in this bond. There are still quite a few schools that will not be upgraded in this bond though, and it's because we're utilizing a strategy of replacing the really old schools and seismically upgrading the schools that aren't quite at the end of their life yet. And the cost to do that is so significant that we just didn't have the capacity in this bond. So we do have a plan for it in the next bond.
I would also like to add that there's a lot of factors that this committee does not oversee, but it's a separate group of individuals. As we're taking a look at what schools we may need to consolidate, we have to face reality that we are a school district that is decreasing in size, and we're forecasted to be approximately 32,000 students in about 8 years' time. That is the same size we were in 1992. So we need to take a look at what buildings and what assets we need to keep online, and which of those, in conjunction with information we'll gather from our facilities team, to say, okay, it doesn't make sense for us to continue to have a building that has a maximum capacity of 275 kids when our standard is 750. So those are decisions that need also to be made over the course of the next 3 to 4 years, so that the facility team has that information in preparation for the next bond.
So,
Aaron, can I ask you one more question?
yep,
on that?
go for it, sorry.
That's a powerful dashboard. Is that a static document now that McKinstry's produced it, that you just kind of filter, or is it something that you use and update as you complete work?
great question, and I will get to it.
Okay,
I'll answer
sorry.
it. This is the next
Go for
slide.
it. Yep.
Hey, well, I know you're into seismic. Is the guideline for seismic upgrades a federal guideline, or is it a state of Oregon guideline based on probability of the earthquake?
It's a state building code issue.
Do
It's
they-
not, there's no federal guidelines. It's just you have to design the buildings to certain engineering criteria, and it's based on the state building code.
Okay.
When we,
The IBC,
yeah, it's the Oregon Structural, yep. So when we build new buildings, like Beaverton High School, we're actually exceeding the code requirements. We're designing them to immediate occupancy. So Beaverton High School goes above and beyond the requirements of code. When we do retrofits, we're typically going to code, which is life safety standard, in most cases, unless there's like grant money associated with it and we have to go higher. Okay, we got all that great information. We got the database there, the condition assessment. I would like to emphasize that it is just a guess, right? It's a couple guys going around to all schools and saying, I think it's gonna last this long. It's not gonna be accurate. It gives us an overall plan and budget to utilize. The way we are checking that, and we're updating it in real time, as we have a capital improvement planning group that we do. We meet quarterly. This says twice a year, it's actually quarterly. This is an internal group with our maintenance administrator and supervisors, and Jeff and myself and Casey, and we're sitting down and we're looking at what are the things from the FCA that are coming up that we think might be an issue, and also what are the things that we know are an issue. What are the, we just did back to school a couple months ago. That's usually a really good time for us to find out which of our HVAC systems are not working. Is when teachers move back into the buildings in the fall. So we have that list of stuff, and we're able to sit down and compare the two and decide what are the priorities, what do we have the capacity to take on, what roofs are leaking that we didn't expect to be leaking, that sort of thing. So we're doing this quarterly. We're constantly checking and reviewing and re-reviewing our priorities to make sure that they are correct. It takes a lot of effort to design and spin up a project, and so making sure we have the right project selected is really critical.
So you're downplaying the accuracy and perfection, but and yeah, it is an educated guess, but
Yep.
it's otherwise whack-a-mole, where somebody calls you and says, our HVAC system just went down. So it's much better than.
Yeah, I don't want to
nothing.
downplay it too much, and it really gives us great information too. Like I said, when I go to start a design, I can hand my designer a list of all of the mechanical units in the school and the literally the serial numbers and all of the electrical gear and the ages, and we know all that information, and it gives us a really great starting point.
I will say too, just to add on to that, the whack-a-mole comment. One of the unknowns that districts are facing is the impact on the way we ran our systems during COVID. We ran those systems not the way they were designed to be run, and so there's an unknown about the life expectancy impact on those. So those are some of the things that we're seeing now a little bit, and is when we will really, in the next few of these meetings, really look at like our HVAC systems. You know, we put higher MERV filters in them. We ran them 24/7 during that time, and they weren't designed to do that. So we need to be able to take what that assessment was and then see what is that impact going to be that we're starting to see those systems starting to fail.
Aaron, if I can add just a piece here. So having this data that comes in, it's better. It's slightly better than whack-a-mole, I would say. Yeah. It's a thump rather than just multiple whacks. Prior to that, we had a work order system, which we still do. But outside of that, and I can say this, having been on probably 5 different bond committees prior to that as a building principal, it was really based on the lobbying skills of a building principal who did not have anything to do with the actual oversight of all the infrastructure that we need to know what works and what's not working. As a building principal, I just expected the HVAC to work. As a principal, I expected carpets to get cleaned or replaced periodically, those types of things, the outside of the building to be done. I didn't pay attention to that. I wanted to go for the glitzy, glamorous stuff inside the building, and that's what I advocated for in the bond. So this is far superior than what we've had in years past. And I would say just having it and continue to having it updated continues to help us educate and, again, take a closer look to say, nope, we've got a longer lifespan in X, Y, or Z as compared to what we thought initially, so.
So my last slide here, which answers Josh's question, is we are constantly updating this. So every year we're doing an annual update to the database. An example, I'll give like Southridge. So Southridge, we've got a major HVAC project there next summer. We're going to place all of the HVAC units. We, gave our project manager the list of all of the HVAC assets in the school. We need this system replaced. We need it new, fully functional and everything. What they will do is at the end of the project, they'll hand us back a new list showing all of the new assets in the school. Here, we've strike out all of these old assets. Here are all the new ones. Here are all the new rooftop units. Here is all the information and estimated remaining life and everything, and we can feed that back into the database. So it's a living document. We're updating it constantly. And a future process improvement that we have not implemented, but we would like to, and we will be doing soon, is tying it into our work order management system. Right now, we have a pretty old work order management system that's challenging to use. We're in the process of actually doing a new one. We've selected a new one, and our maintenance team is going through and getting that implemented right now. Once that is implemented, it will tie in with our facilities condition assessment. So they're going to load in the database of assets into the work order management system. And so when someone is submitting a work order, our maintenance techs are able to actually tie that to a specific asset, and the work order, whatever work is done on that asset will live in that database with the work order management system. Yes.
If I remember right, on the HVAC systems being replaced, you couldn't specify the unit manufacturer, but you're able to standardize on the control system so that the technicians don't have to learn 8 or 10 different control systems?
That's correct. We do have one standard control system across the district. It's a Johnson Controls platform. For HVAC units, we do standardize. It's not a specific manufacturer. It's more a level of quality, and we list like 3 different acceptable manufacturers that we do have experience with.
Okay.
So it doesn't necessarily preclude other ones, but typically it'll drive it in that direction.
Saves on replacement parts too.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Hey, Aaron, just clarification on that first bullet, the last sentence. It seems to me like something's left out of there.
Yeah, it's just poor wording on my part, I think. It means as part of the closeout process, the project manager is giving us a report showing what assets were impacted as a result of the project. Like, do we need to make any updates to the condition of the asset? What was done? You know, like for instance, we have a lot of schools that have asbestos in it. That gets listed as a asset, kind of in a weird way. And so if we're going in and dealing with that and abating it, or say we're abating half the school, well, we need to go in and update that quantity in the database to reflect the new quantity. We're reducing the quantity of that deficiency. And that's it. Any other questions?
I still am, I think this is a great system. I think I can see where it helps you a lot. How do you use this to manage the 120 million? In other words, 2 years from now, how are you going to know that you're within where you want to be?
So it's a combination of things. I would say the main way we're managing the 120 million is using this financial report. This is showing, which projects have been committed out of the 120 million and what the remaining balance of that is. We're essentially targeting $20 million worth of work per year. And so it's really just tracking to see how we're doing relative to that. Last year we didn't spend 20 million.
That list is going to be somewhat dynamic, right? I mean, you may have a major piece of equipment that breaks down that you didn't anticipate.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to put that on the list, and maybe, I guess you've got some cushion there. What it goes back to perception that this looks. I think you've defined it pretty well, but there's still a perception that this is a bit of a slush fund that you're able to just kind of move around. And that concerns me for two reasons. One is your ability to be able to manage that, and our ability to say, you guys have it in hand.
So one thing that happened in the last bond that I think was really challenging for us to deal with was, and I think this is what you're suggesting, is right at the beginning of the bond, right when it was developed, there was an entire list of projects that made up it was the 98 million. The deferred maintenance budget in the 2014 bond was 98 million. And there was a list for every one of those pennies. And it was seen by the committee and by the community as a list of commitments, like a rigid list of predictive deferred maintenance projects over the course of an 8-year bond. And that really tied our hands in terms of how we executed projects. Something that was we thought might be a need in 8 years at the beginning of the bond wasn't necessarily a need at the end of the bond. And, like I said with the predictive list, we're going to guess at the remaining years of life remaining on a certain asset, but it's not going to always be correct. Sometimes it'll be less, sometimes it'll be more. It's hard to say, but when we have a very specified list that far out ahead of time, it's very challenging to manage that list, and it makes it so we can be reactive if a piece of equipment goes out. So I think that is what our capital improvement planning committee is for. That is why, we do have some bond commitments here, and why we're comparing the list from the conditions assessment with the list of commitments and what we're seeing as actual needs. It really allows us to be responsive and take care of the high priority items.
Along that line, when you have changes, or at least significant changes, can you highlight them here? Because if you just take something off and add something on,
You mean like
because you,
on this report?
yeah, you're saying this is the way that we should be monitoring it. But this doesn't have all of the $120 million worth of things that you're planning, right?
It doesn't have all of the $120 million worth of projects, but it does account for all of the $120 million.
Okay.
So when the way we do this is we have our capital improvement planning committee. We're looking and we're deciding what those projects are for the next few years. Like, if you just look on here, and in fact, maybe I'll pull it up. Let's see. All right.
So Dick, one of the things that maybe will help a little bit with the capital improvement plan and the team, right? So we've reached out and we sit down, being facilities development, and we sit down with our maintenance partners, and we've asked them to prioritize capital deferred maintenance needs that they see. So they've gone back to their teams, right? Their roofers, their steam fit, or their plumbers and all this, and they prioritized projects that they see that are necessary. And then what we've done is we've cross-referenced that with the FCA and tried to align those as much as possible. But then there's things where the FCA may say it has a 10-year life and they're seeing that it has a 2-year life, or vice versa. There may be a roof that says it's in critical need of repair, and the trades are telling us, no, that roof's got at least 10 years on it. Let's focus on another one, right? And so we have a document that we use internally to help take those priorities and put them into our capital planning plan, right? So we look at those, we take both of those, we prioritize the list, and then we as a team assign resources to those projects and start. That's where the list that you see on the plan there, on the report, have been developed through, or how they got developed. And so that's how we've come to several of these projects. So
And that sounds good. I'm not trying to cast any doubt on the way you're managing it. I have a lot of confidence in you, but I'm just looking for a way that you can raise the visibility. So if there are those changes, a major transformer goes out and it's a big ticket item, and it wasn't on the list, that you just flag that or identify that for us so that it gives you credibility and it gives us credibility when we report on that. That's where I'm going.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would need to think about what the threshold for a major changes, because that's happening constantly. I mean, there's tons of stuff we didn't expect to go bad.
What kind of threshold do you have for the 20 items that you've got on here?
So we're on this list, so this numbering sequence here, this is how we identify projects. So we use eBuilder as our project management software. Each of these things is an entire project in eBuilder, and these are the codes associated with those projects. So when we add a project, we're putting it on here and we're putting in the budget, the cost we anticipate for that project. Some of them you'll see don't even have budgets yet. It's because we've identified it as a project and we're going through the due diligence of what is the scope, what is the project. Yeah, I was trying to think of a good example here. Capitol Center cafeteria roof, that was something that we didn't have originally planned, but we know that it's a need, and so we've identified it. It's a high priority, it's leaking. We're gonna put it in here. We're gonna establish a budget, but we need to do a little bit of, how much roof are we talking about? What type of roof? Is it a tear off or is it a cover? That sort of thing. And so once we do that, we will establish that budget, and it's coming from this unallocated section of the deferred maintenance
But
budget.
if I read that right, you've got $100 million that's unallocated.
It's allocated towards deferred maintenance. It's not allocated towards a specific deferred maintenance project.
So is it fair to assume that every deferred maintenance project is going to end up on this list and pick away at that 99 million, or actually maybe 75 million after your budget transfers?
Yeah, that's correct. Exactly.
So it'll get on there as they start to
Okay,
choose the projects,
and
right?
all I'm saying is can you flag those those changes as they come up? If you add, $10, $15 million worth of stuff that's not on there today, 4 months from now,
Dick, this
Is
is
there
the
a way-
entire list as we know it today.
Yeah.
We are still in the process of developing the priorities for that list. So
Right.
every project in the deferred maintenance that we know of right now that we're doing is on this list. And each one that we add to it will be on this list.
right, no, I'm saying, that's great, Casey, and I support that. All I'm saying is, as you make those changes, if you can put some kind of designator on that list so that when we see it,
Can you give me an
Because we're
example
not
of the,
we're not
can you give me an
living with-
example of the change you're talking about? I don't
Pardon?
understand what you're saying.
what?
If I may, each month when we make a change to this, we highlight it in yellow. So if next month we added
That's all I'm asking.
budget for
Well, we already
three
do that.
projects, we've highlighted them in yellow on the report.
Okay, great.
So it's being flagged.
So you're already doing it?
Yes.
That's what I wanted.
Uh,
Good answer, thanks.
Flagged as being, like it's added to the list of the projects that we're doing, but the way that I'm reading this, you ran the model, you got to a hundred for maintenance projects. There were 1,000 things that generated that number. Are we doing those things, or are we just doing a bunch of other things that pop up? And so I think my question is gonna be, at the end of this bond, will we have addressed the 120 million that generated that estimate, or a completely different 120 million that we didn't anticipate?
That's a fair question. It's gonna be a little bit of both too, right? Like, each of these projects, like say Southridge, for instance, currently it's a $9 million project. That's probably like 150 of those assets from that report that we're dealing with. And so you're asking for some sort of reconciliation between that list and the final list, and that is something that would be we could probably do. Certainly, that seems reasonable. And that's like an end of the bond type of thing. But as we go through and we are updating the FCA through our CIP process, those items that are showing as end of life already, if we're continuing to not address them, they're going to continue to show as, hey, it's a red flag. This thing's going to die any day now, past its useful life. Those are things that are going to stick with us on that assessment. And if we didn't replace them, there's a good reason why we're not replacing them. It's because, well, we thought it was, when we did this assessment, we thought this unit was going to die soon. It's still running. Somehow it's a, high quality unit. It's still going. We're not going to replace it unnecessarily.
Yeah, I don't want to get into trying to reconcile 1,000 things, but it's like at the end of, or as we even go through, some indicator that could be a percentage of like the original list of things that generated this estimate, what percent of the list?
Sure.
Because otherwise it kind of doesn't remember the public, and it's like, did this 120 million plan? If it did you do this part of the plan?
One thing I can assure you all is that we're going to blow through the 120 million at some point. I mean, you saw how the filters we had to apply to that to get it done. At some point here, when we start having committed budgets on these larger projects, we're going to come back and ask you to start spending that money, the bond contingency on deferred maintenance projects. So we know that's what one of the big needs for it, and we're not going to have enough. We filtered down 500 million down to 120 million. So we're prioritizing it. We're doing the worst stuff possible, and it's not going to be enough to address all the needs.
Yeah, and I would just keep in mind where we are in the bond. Early on, we're getting ready to kick off the majority of half of the projects, and so that'll really settle a lot of things when we get all of those finances settled. So we'll be able to relook at this yearly and see where we are and what we need to add or defer.
I think part of it too is that, the reports that you create are necessary for you to be able to run the projects. and you show them to us, and we have to kind of pick through them to understand our assessment. So for example, you see a change in this sheet, and you can look at the budget transfer sheet and see where money got moved from deferred comp to a seismic job. And if it's not clear to you why, you can ask the question and you say, because we're going to redo the roof in the same job, it's the same contractor. As far as we're concerned, we're managing that as one project. And that's why it shows up the way it does on the report. So there's a little bit of work for us to do to try and find those things. And I'm not suggesting we need a separate report that helps us get through that, but I think we need to recognize that ourselves too, that the reports you're giving us are the stuff that you're using to do your job and to efficiently run these projects. And it's helpful to us, but it doesn't answer all our questions. And at some level, we have to accept that, I think.
Yep, there you go. Okay, cool. With that, I'm going to go into the financial report, which I think is our last item. These apples. Okay. Okay. So, top of the list here. We have an established guaranteed maximum price. We have a signed contract for Raleigh Hills, so I think that's a big win. It's on budget. We've got Pence contractors who are doing the project for Raleigh Hills, and this is obviously our second largest project in the bond. So to be able to deliver or to have an agreement on budget, I think is really exciting for us. So that project, just as a reminder, is going to start in June of next year. They'll do the demolition and immediately begin construction. The kids are going to go to Greenway for the duration of construction, which is 2 years. Next is good news here. We added almost $1 million in interest earned to the bond program reserve. So that, increases the available balance there. As far as schedule goes, one of the things I've talked about a bunch that we're trying to do to help with some of the challenges, market condition challenges that we're seeing, is we're really trying to move back our project planning cycle to be a 2-year cycle from when we kick off the project to when we're doing construction, which means we're able to procure the projects a bit earlier, and that has been really good. We've seen long lead times on a lot of stuff is not necessarily improving, and so the sooner we're buying out the jobs, the sooner we're able to begin procurement of those long lead materials, and that's helped out quite a bit on several projects. And like I said, those continue to be their challenges. Permitting, our local jurisdictional partners are struggling with a lot of the same challenges as far as staffing that a lot of the contractors are. So imagine, there's fewer building inspectors, there's fewer plans examiners. Those lead times for us to get permits on projects are really long right now, and it makes it very difficult. That's a critical path thing on all projects.
So Eric, on the permitting timelines and the equipment lead times, I presume those are both challenges.
Yeah, those are challenges.
So not necessarily an opportunity to do something quicker kind of thing. What are you doing about anticipating that those are issues? Is there anything that the staff or you can get the contractor to do to prevent that becoming a problem?
Yeah, great question. So
Jeff might be able to answer that. Like Beaverton, I was thinking with the CMGC process that we're using and like the electrical switchgear, you're right in the middle of that.
Sorry, I missed your question there. I was thinking about the capital improvement plan while you were talking, so I apologize. What was the question around? Sorry.
Sorry, just how are we managing long lead items? How are we
Oh, yeah.
addressing those issues, knowing that that's out there? How are we solving that issue?
I think one of the bigger
basically?
things that we're doing in this bond that we did less in the previous bond is utilizing the CMGC contracting method. We're using that for a decent amount of our projects now, and what we're doing is we're bringing trade partners in as part of that CMGC process early to help us define those gaps and those long lead issues, right? And then we can procure that pieces of scope early before we execute a GMP. We can do an early work amendment for that work. So that's one of the biggest things that we're doing now to help defray that risk, is bringing those contractors on board early instead of hard bidding it later in the process. And then having that risk, we're having those trade partners come in and helping us understand that. And then like Aaron mentioned, we're trying to get in front of the work as well. Like for instance, Southridge High School and Capitol Center HVAC. Normally we would have bid those projects out. Like now we wouldn't even have bidded them out yet. We would have bid them out in January for next year. Well, we bid all those projects out over the summer to ensure that we have those units on site and ready to fly when we get the projects going. So that's part of the whole project development cycle, is making sure we get in front of it and then procure it early. So we work with the reps, like we reach out to the reps and we're always constantly asking them, what are delivery times for these things? So we trying to stay up with the market by working through the representatives to tell us how long certain pieces are going to take to manufacture and get here when we do it. So.
And then for permitting, similarly, getting out in front of it, the earlier we can start designing and submitting for permits, the more lead time we can give to those jurisdictional partners. We can do permitting kind of concurrent with bidding and submittals and that sort of thing. One other thing we're doing more proactively is, Casey's good idea actually, is we've assigned one of our staff to be really the main liaison with the different jurisdictions. Gone are the days where we would get a big roll of plans and deliver them to the city and they would look at them. It's all online now, and that seems great and convenient, but it's also very confusing and complicated for a lot of people. There are a lot of interfaces you're having to deal with in these online portals. So unless you're really keyed into how these systems work, there's different systems work, and Washington County and City of Beaverton have different systems. There's different notification mechanisms. There's different nuances to these systems that it's easy to accidentally sit on a plan review comment for a couple months without noticing it, like if you didn't get the notification. So we've assigned someone on our staff to really be that main point of contact who's working with them to make sure we're not missing those types of comments, that we're not wasting time unnecessarily due to technical issues.
Thank you.
And then let's see. I'm gonna go down to the project updates. Oh, here's one thing of note. We added this month, based on some feedback, we added this project schedule. So this is really meant to help everybody see the projects we have going on and the kind of how we're tracking relative to our planned schedules for each of these projects.
And this is the only the known projects, right? Kind of like the financial list. So as you guys decide, this deferred maintenance project is going to start, and you're going to add it onto the schedule. We're only getting this much of it right now, right?
This is largely the projects for next year and the year after. So this is projects that we have actually started planning and kicked off internally.
Yeah.
That's correct.
The last year here in high school was the demolition of the existing school. They're still planning on moving in 2 years.
That's correct. Yep. Yep. So,
Hey, Aaron, on this schedule, when was it established?
when was the schedule established? It was, there wasn't. When did we establish that, Gabby? We posted on the website like a year ago or something. A lot.
this thing will work. I mean, around there about a year ago, but also with modernization and projects as well, it's been changing. So we do have the most current on the website, though.
Yeah, for all the major projects, it's been established since we went out for the bond. The smaller the project, you know, a lot like the maintenance projects, for instance, we're establishing those schedules as we identify and kick those projects off. So that's when we'll add them onto here.
Yeah, I like this. Have there been any changes from when it was set?
There's been some changes. There's been, I don't know from when, like, there's been some stuff that come up, like some of our seismic projects, right? We assume we could get those done in a single summer, and we've had to, through the realization of the complexity and adding deferred maintenance to that, those may take 2 summers, right? So that kind of shifts everything that resource was going to be managing as they move forward. So we've got to move some things around. Those are, I think, the biggest shifts has been in the seismic, just them taking longer than being able to do it as a summer project, or some of that stuff work's going to have to take place and during the school year. So it may have shown a summer duration, and now where we have a wider duration, where we're starting in the spring and it's bleeding into the fall potentially on some things.
But those changes aren't, I can't tell looking at this thing where those are, because it reminds me of what we used to call a rubber baseline. In that anytime something changed, we just change it. And in multi-year projects, that becomes real difficult to measure. How am I doing? Maybe doing great, maybe doing not so great, but you don't know because you're always adjusting your schedule here.
Well, this is the first time we've published this schedule, so, you know, certainly it'd be worth highlighting something if it changes. as we
That's
move
all,
forward.
where I'm going. I like the idea of having this. I think it helps us, but we should, just to be accountable to ourselves, know when we're shifting. There may be perfectly good reasons for shifting it.
Sure. Yep, we could do that. Let's see here. So, scroll down. This is showing how we're tracking on the our equity performance goals. Overall, looking pretty good right now, especially with contractors. Whoops. Sorry, I'm not used to using the Apple computer. Okay, Beaverton High School. So, Beaverton High School is coming along. No real major updates to that other than, you know, portables are in place, and we're continuing to work with Skanska on the pricing for the project and completing the bid docs, which is coming along really well.
Aaron, what's your target for the GMP?
They owe us the draft, I think, right around Christmas sometime, and then I believe our plan is to, you know, kind of spend January going through that and having some back and forth, and then we're going to be bringing it to the February school board meeting
Okay.
for approval.
So would that be 90% CDs at that point? Is that kind of the idea that you're basing it off of?
It's off of 50%
Oh,
CDs.
the 50s?
Yep.
Okay.
There's gonna be portions of the work that will be 100% done.
Yeah. Yep.
But they're gonna be updating as they do procurement, but it won't all be.
Okay.
Raleigh Hills, I already mentioned, that's coming along great. Have executed GMP on that project. Stoller Middle School addition is coming along as well in terms of design. Also looking for a January GMP on that project. Aloha High School is coming along. This is our kind of one big active construction project we have going on right now. Encourage you all to drive by the site. It's pretty exciting. One notable thing on here, we have had a couple of challenges that they're not in the report because it just came up this week, but there's a couple issues with the construction as far as the layout. One of the stem walls, they missed the layout on, so they had to actually take it out and redo it, which is just it's unfortunate for the contractor because it's a mistake that they're having to deal with. We had a subcontractor issue to go. The framing subcontractor on the project backed out, so Howard Wright's having to scramble to cover that gap. But they've got a plan and expect to get it back on schedule here pretty soon. Westview High School, we have the front office relocation. So this is a really cool rendering of what that's going to look like. Really happy with how that design is coming along and should fit in pretty seamlessly with the existing design. That's the next summer project also.
Hey, on that, since you've got that nice drawing, does the seismic design exceed current regulations?
The current seismic design, so there's not really structural components to this project. It's really like a vestibule that we're putting in. So there's not, I mean, it will be seismically sound, this new portion. Perfect. PE and athletics. So we have two really big athletics projects going on this summer. We're doing at Westview the concessions and bathroom building and the stadium turf. One thing I noted on here, which I'll have more information in a few months probably, but there's a lot of new stormwater requirements that we're seeing on our projects. It's called hydro modification rules from Clean Water Services, which really are significant, and we're going to see cost impacts on any of these turf projects. Anytime we're switching from artificial grass, or natural grass, which is fully pervious, all the water goes through. You're switching to a turf product, artificial turf, which is impervious. The water can't get through. You're having to convey it off-site. And in order to convey it off-site, you're having to treat it for water quality through a filter system. And you're having to retain it for water quantity. You can only convey a certain quantity of water over a certain period of time to the distribution system. And so we're having to add those, and there's going to be cost impacts on all those projects. So we'll have more information on that in the future. But Southridge and Westview and Aloha ultimately that's going to come up. And then our two seismic projects. Mountain View is coming along really well. Howard S. Wright is doing that project. We'll have a guaranteed maximum price at the November board meeting. So next time we meet, we'll have some more information on that. We're just starting to negotiate that. And then Five Oaks, you recall, we did about half of the project this last summer, and then next summer we'll be wrapping it up. We have PNC Construction doing that, and it's gone really well so far. And then just some pictures of different modernization projects we have going on. These are a couple of playgrounds we have coming up, pre-K playgrounds at Monica and Fir Grove. And I'm not going to read through all these, but you guys can read it in the report. There's we have a lot of projects going on in the modernization group of projects. It's been a real big win with the schools. Here's our nice track at Sunset High School. There's a groundbreaking on that next week if anyone wants to attend on the 30th. They're doing a ribbon cutting ceremony. And then they're going to let the kids run around. It'll be very nice.
That'll be at 3 p.m. if anybody wants to show up.
And that is it for our report. Any questions or anything?
Will the sports fields be available in the summer?
No, I don't believe so. Yeah, we're closing the whole site. The challenge is, the fields are on the back of the property, so there's no place to park or access it from during construction. So, yeah, unfortunately, it's gonna be closed.
So, when Trevor was here talking about Beaverton High School, I asked him to come back and talk about their biggest risks and what they're doing proactively before they get too close to starting construction. Maybe Pence could do the same thing. I mean, in fact, they could maybe come to the January meeting, because it sounds like you won't have a GMP with Skanska by then anyway.
Yeah.
So it probably makes more sense for Pence first. And maybe maybe also give us a major milestone schedule or something so that, you know, if the building shell's supposed to be complete by some date, we have a sense of a way to sort of see if they're making the progress they're supposed to without getting into the nitty-gritty details of every line item in their schedule, but maybe a couple of big things so that we can see how progress is going if we go out and make a site visit or something with you. I don't know, just an idea that they have a plan, so maybe they'd be willing to share a few of their major milestones as well as what they're doing about their risks.
Yeah, sounds good. I like it. We'll have to check and see what if they're available and everything, but, yeah.
Aaron, one more for you on just kind of looking at the bond as a whole and where the market is at. There's that big sucking sound that's coming out at Hillsborough that was John brought up with about $10 billion worth of work coming out there. And then Portland Public Schools has another, about $2 billion worth of work to do. PCC has their bond going. So we got the big contractors to come for Beaverton High School and for Raleigh Hills. It's the other work, this deferred maintenance that we're talking about, this other, pickup work. I'm worried about who's going to come and want to pursue that work when they have these big other shiny objects out there. So just not an answer for tonight, but something we can talk about in January is just kind of what's the overall vision from your guys' perspective, how you attract in those contractors that the quality of contractors that we want to have doing this work. Just a suggestion for next time for us to chat about.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know
There's
that's a big
lot I can say on
question.
that,
I'm not
for sure.
trying to, but just a strategy for this group to talk about perhaps.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that covers it unless anybody else has anything.
Thank you, Aaron. One other point before we adjourn, I am working on the report for the school board. School board has decided they don't want an in-person meeting. So it'll be all the report. I mean, that's going to be that and the attendance of the representatives on this meeting will be our tie. So in the next week, I expect to finish it up. I'll be distributing it to you all. You need to turn it around fairly quickly, and I'll set a timeline on it. Then we want a factual accuracy check from facility staff, as we've always done, and then we'll submit it. Any questions on that? Okay, anything else for the good of the order? Thank you all. See you in January.